Um, Good afternoon, everyone. Can everyone hear me?
Yeah.
Okay,
I can
great.
hear you.
Well, thank you. Welcome to the Planning Commission workshop meeting for Tuesday, May 20th, 2025. And here in the room with me is James Harris. I am Wayne Beeler, the chairman of the Planning Commission. And online we have Peter Rye and Nelson DeLeon. And I suspect that Wilson Feasey will join us a little bit later. First on the agenda is to accept the Planning Commission meeting agenda. Do I hear a motion? Make a motion. Okay, James, second.
Second.
Okay, Peter. Question on the motion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay, very good. And we will start off today's meeting with Peter Simone, who will be doing a presentation on first a presentation on the transit-oriented development, and then following the transit-oriented development plan, you will follow up with the new Vision Zero plan. Great. So I will turn it over to Peter.
Great, thank you, and thanks for your time. I know you have a big agenda, so I'll try to be quick on both of these. There it goes. Are you doing that? Okay. Okay, so this is fifth time we've been to the Planning Commission. This has been a long task working through this ordinance. So here are the number of meetings that we've had with Planning Commission. We've met with City Council, the Chamber, who is our client officially, who hired us to do this. We've had meetings with the Project Steering Committee. We've met with planners in other cities to get their advice and what they've done with TOD zoning. And also a lot of really good meetings with city staff. We've also had additional engagement at the Berks Alliance. We presented some of this at the impact study back on October 24 in the city of Philadelphia, and also at the APA meeting in last March. Where we are right now is we submitted a draft ordinance to the city staff, to Grading Ready Chamber back in February. They've reviewed it. We had a really good meeting a week ago on May 14th, and we went through and we're going to make some revisions, get it back to staff, and we're going to go to the Greater Reading Chamber, discuss it with them. And our best estimate is that staff will be ready to present the ordinance to the Planning Commission and Council mid to late summer. So that's where our schedule is. The first part, if you recall our previous meetings with you, we spent a lot of time on the adaptive reuse part of the ordinances that city staff is already working on. And they included definitions. One of the things we had suggested was to make adaptive reuse by right in CC district. The council didn't want to go that way. So it's a special exception in the CC district. We made some suggestions for provisions for non-conformities for adaptive reuse. We have been working with staff on parking requirements, which you've seen in Saldo amendments that they've suggested. So we're coordinating that. That's probably the biggest area right now of coordination we have to do with staff is on the parking. And the other thing that we've suggested, which we thought is a good process, is the sort of mandatory, I can't see what it is there, but that mandatory process where you come in and just have a meeting with Planning Commission staff or before you submit the one-stop shop, one-stop meeting process. We thought that's a really great process, saves everybody time. We suggested making it mandatory, but so far that staff hasn't recommended that, but it's a small point. We've explored parking using surface parking lots for redevelopment opportunities with new construction. There are a few surface parking lots in the TOD district, but there are a lot of private ones too. So one of the questions staff asked us last week was, where are the open parcels for new development? And once adaptive reuse is sort of played through, we think things will become more attractive for new development, and surface lots may be an opportunity. Your parking study a couple of years ago showed that the surface lots are used, but your garages are not as much. So we think there's opportunity perhaps to do that. In terms of where we are at the draft summary, we've recommended eliminating the riverfront redevelopment overlay district because that was put in place about 12-15 years ago, and the developer was in town proposing to do all kinds of ambitious stuff that hasn't been used. So we think it's sort of redundant, and so we suggested eliminating that. In the underlying MC district, residential use is permitted as an adaptive reuse where the TOD overlay goes, and you'll see that in a minute. We think it's important to have in the RR Riverfront Redevelopment District, there was a provision to have access on the riverfront. And you have that near the college and up just downstream of the college, but further downstream towards Neversink Mountain, you don't have that. So we're suggesting a new overlay so that as land developments come in the years ahead, you will land development will trigger the necessity for the owner to give you access along the river. So we think that's a small overlay that could be helpful. We've also suggested eliminating the Penn Square Corridor Overlay District, but incorporate its requirements into the TOD zoning overlay. I did speak today to the Corps manager, and she's very interested in that. And we're going to get this in front of her and go over with her, and she'll make some suggestions. So she was very happy that staff had recommended we reach out to her because we were previously unaware of her position. Actually, there was a suggestion that adaptive reuse be allowed by right in the CC district if the project does not reduce the required habitable area or the project does not reduce off-street parking. So that might be a compromise if the planning commission and council wants to consider that as a way to make the adaptive reuse by right with those conditions in the CC district. In terms of the district itself, this is where we started out at Buttonwood Street and 11th Street down along the river. This is the underlying zoning in where the overlay was. So again, underlying zoning would remain. TOD overlay gives you more options. And working with staff has recommended that we rein in the TOD overlay a little bit. I think their suggestion makes sense. Not go as far north as Buttonwood, but stop at I think that's Walnut Street, and also pull the overlay out of the floodplain overlay district for I think obvious reasons. And we think this makes sense. I mean, there could be some discussions in the years ahead about maybe extending it, but we think getting it in place is more important than worrying exactly where the boundaries are. We think these boundaries make sense. You can see the location of the proposed rail station. So we're happy to proceed with this limit. We think it's a good recommendation. The purpose, I won't read all this, but the purpose is to promote economic development, for more development in the city, for pedestrian oriented, encourage a variety of housing types, including workforce housing, which I'll go into in a minute. Workforce housing is something a lot of communities strive for, but it's sometimes hard to get in place. We think there's an opportunity. In terms of the application, the TOD overlay would apply to new land developments if they come in under the overlay, or if an adaptive reuse has more than 25% expansion of its footprint, then the provisions of the TOD could apply, even though it's an adaptive reuse, because it grows so much, and there's certain benefits you'll see doing the adaptive reuse. The parking, I won't go into this. You've seen, I know, the saldo suggestions from the planning commission staff. We need to coordinate these. I think we're close, but they're a little bit complex. So we're going to make sure we're coordinated on those. I mean, generally the direction is to try to reduce parking where it seems feasible. Developers we've talked to say even if the requirements relax, they may come in over that if they feel like they need parking, depending on the level of project they're doing. So that's probably the biggest area of coordination. In terms of the overlay, we're also working with staff on making sure all the newest definitions are in there for, things like co-working space, or live work unit, microbreweries, those types of things, which might be allowed under the TOD. So that's a small item of coordination. The workforce housing, I think, is something that it seems as though city planning commission staff and others have expressed interest in. Basically, it is a process where, based upon the average median income, a certain number of units, let's say on a project of 30 units or more is what we suggested, that once a project gets to that size, the developer would be required to offer 10% of the units at let's say 60% of the AMI. The AMI is determined, I think annually at least by HUD, and it is you can see the numbers there: 60% of the AMI based upon what's the median for Berks County, and you can see those numbers. And so what it would do is it effectively reduces the unit cost, whether it's a for sale or a rental unit, for that person. And it's it's for school teachers and firefighters and people who are essential to the city. You wouldn't qualify based on your job, but you qualify by your income level. And we still have to clarify the details, how you go through the process of applying for that. But it's a way to provide more reasonably priced units, because as you know, even the adaptive reuse units that have been done, and a lot of them are very nice, still are a little pricey, and they're not priced for everyone. So this is a way to try to bring that price down, at least for a certain percentage of units. So it's something that we think is workable, and we'll provide more details on that. In terms of the incentives for the developer, they get, and some of it, depending on exactly the zone and where they are and what they want to do, they get increased height, smaller minimum lot size, increase impervious coverage. Staff had some questions about that, but regardless what the impervious coverage is, they still have to control the stormwater coming off the site, as you know. So it may be a little more expensive to do that. The parking incentives I mentioned, residential uses in the manufacturing commercial district, and then also in terms of the requirements, a workforce housing requirement, we've suggested 30 DUs as the trigger point. Public civic space, and again, it's not a huge requirement, but on projects that have a minimum lot size of 18,000 square feet, you'd have to do 10%, so 1,800 square feet. It's a space 40 by 45, but at least giving some amount of open space on that lot, and providing that amenity to that built streetscape improvements and also pedestrian oriented improvements. In terms of design guidelines, those will also be included. And these things, some of them would require probably more money, but a lot of them are just, I think, and we've done this before in other places, more thought about design, how you use materials in a creative way to create relief on facades, to create variation of materials on facades and things like that. These are not overly prescriptive, and it would be up to the planning commission to interpret those and to say, yeah, this is a nicer standard in terms of design. So these are some of the things that I think are benefits to the city. In terms of some of those requirements, this is the overall chart. And if we zoom in, you can see, like, for minimum lot size, we're going from 25 to 18, and the CC district for maximum building coverage, 70 to 90%, those types of things. So again, as the incentive, allowing for more development on the same site, but still making sure that health, safety, and other regulations are taken care of. So this is the one for the CR district. I won't read this, but it's in the draft ordinance that you'll get. So I think there we go.
go.
So that's our presentation. I just want to give you an update where we are. Expect to see something hopefully midsummer. And happy to answer any questions or hear any comments that you might have.
Actually, I was very pleased with the new map of the TOD district, because that's going to allow us to work on something in the future that, the study was done, of course, years ago, but that section of Buttonwood Street where you come across the bridge and you got the Buttonwood Gateway there, and then that area down through there, that's sections actually called Riptown, and there's actual federal money available for workforce housing and things. So after we take care of this, then we can tackle that project.
I actually saw a really good presentation last night from the Berks County Industrial Development Group, City Council. And I mean, they were talking about some of the same things, and they're very interested in TOD. So I guess they gave an informational presentation last night, which was really excellent if you wanted to go back and watch the recording.
Yeah.
Very good.
Does any of the other commissioners have comments or questions?
Well, my only question would be, have there been any surveys or out to the police, fire, teachers who want to relocate to the city?
Not that I know
I
of.
mean, is there a desire for them to come into the city and live?
I don't know. I know that, as far as I know, there's been no surveys about that.
That is something that yeah, we should actually we can at least do something with the school district. With that, I have good contacts with the school district. So
Maybe a survey or an incentive. I've seen places do incentives for staff to relocate closer. You know, I know University of Pennsylvania, Drexel, they've done things to help develop their area.
I think, I mean, I think the survey would be instructive, but I think examples in other places, and I'll use Allentown, right? Who last 10 years, I don't know how many apartment units they have a lot. And people are starting to get priced out up there. And so, you know, I think as Reading becomes more successful and continues to grow, people are gonna want to be here. I don't think you're gonna have people not wanting to be here as you continue to grow and add units. At least based on what's happening in other places. A lot of places, you know, have, difficulty with just having blue collar folks living in town. They have to drive great distances sometimes to get in. So at least that's been my observation.
yes. Anyone else?
Yeah, this is an interesting topic, this workforce housing and the 30 unit trigger. I guess, the other end of the argument, I hear what you're saying. A lot of big cities, struggle to house, the service workers and what have you. Reading though is not like that. Reading has this abundance of low quality or inexpensive or both housing, and the push has been to do more and more market rates housing, and that's if the developer can't see a return on investment, then then the only alternative is to get a subsidy or not do it. Right. So I'm not sure that I don't know where the 30 unit trigger would land us in terms of projects. I'm thinking of what is the building, the General Battery building, or the one in front of it, Santander Bank is in, or that was to be redeveloped. And I know there's a lot of discussion about smaller units and units without windows and all sorts of things. And I'm trying, that's probably over 30 units. So that would trigger this clause. And I don't know if then the developer would choose to walk away from it if that were the case.
Again, this would only be under the TOD overlay. So for
Yeah.
adaptive reuse, this can apply.
Yeah, well, that's the building I'm thinking of is in the TOD or would be in the TOD. And it would be an adaptive reuse. I'm just
Yeah, for example, the Penn Square building city council, from what I understand, is settled on the number of units, it's 180. So like with your, what you call it there, 10% is only 18 units.
Right, but I guess my point is, the developer probably has no reason to come in under the TOD overlay. They probably just do a straight adaptive reuse. Because they're not gonna, unless they're adding 25% to the habitable space of the building, there's no reason for them to be under the TOD, is my point. The workforce housing thing is really more geared to new construction that might happen in the future, not adaptive reuse of existing buildings.
All right, so it wouldn't force the situation if it was an adaptive reuse. That's what you're saying.
Correct, correct.
Okay. All right, I didn't understand that.
Yeah, that makes it clearer for me also.
Yeah, sorry if I wasn't clear.
Yeah. Okay, great.
All right.
Maybe that detail can be added in here.
Sorry, Jamar.
No, Peter Simone, I was saying maybe that detail could be highlighted so it's a little more clear.
Yeah.
Sure.
That provision is geared towards new construction.
Right.
And that has been done in other major cities. What was the percentage? I missed that part. I'm sorry.
We had suggested 10%.
Oh yeah, that's reasonable. Mm-hmm. Sorry. Thank you.
And we had some discussions with staff to make it higher, but we thought would be better served to get something on the books at a lower percentage than trying to reach too far.
Yeah, I'm familiar with more like 30. So I think 10 is a lot less aggressive. But Peter Wright made a good point on existing, buildings to try to profit.
I happen to know somebody who's renting a 2-bedroom unit on Penn Street. It's not in great condition. Building has issues, old boilers, leaking roofs, so, these sorts of things. And the rent there is above the 60% for a 2-bedroom unit. So this is a pretty low bar. Just gonna say that person is actively moving to new construction that's going to be $2,000 a month. Outside the city. These are low numbers, but 10%, I suppose, a developer would be willing to bear that.
Should we move to the next one? Sure. Okay, we will move on to the Vision Zero plan.
Great, thank you. This has been a plan. This is a plan that's been in the works for a while. It started out as an active transportation plan. City had a grant from WalkWorks, and about halfway through the plan, the bipartisan infrastructure bill was passed, which has Safe Streets and Roads for All program, which provides funding for multimodal improvements. So we worked with the city and we changed the focus of the plan from an active transportation plan to what's called a Vision Zero plan. So you have the presentation. Maybe go to view. All right, well, we'll just do this manually. So The vision plan, the Vision Zero action plan lays out a strategy for multimodal connections. And the philosophy behind Vision Zero is that we can do better with our design of streets and sidewalks. And we want to have the aspirational goal of eliminating fatalities and serious injuries due to traffic accidents. And the plan is meant to be evaluated annually and updated and tracked and changed. So it's not meant to be a static plan. And in the plan, when you get a chance to review it, you'll see the planning commission would be the agency or the commission to review that for the city, maybe with a committee, however you want to do that. And creating and adopting the plan allows the city to apply for federal funding to implement the plan. That's new this year. In 2024, we made an application before the plan was finished. We weren't successful for that, but this year you have to have the plan adopted. So we have a very short time window, which we apologize for, but our goal is to for the planning commission to review the plan and hopefully give a positive recommendation to city council if possible a week from today. You know, that's a super aggressive schedule. But again, in order to qualify to submit a grant, we have to have the plan adopted by city council by the 26th of June, when the date grant is due. So recognizing that this is a planning document, it doesn't obligate the city to do anything in it. It is a guideline, but we think a pretty accurate and highly useful guideline to move this forward. So we hope that the planning commission can make a recommendation to city council, and on June 9th, we're scheduled to go in front of city council to present this summary. This plan's been sent out to planning commission members, to city council, to city staff, our committee that we've worked on to review, and this is sort of a summary of that. Over the last 3 years, this program has awarded over $3 billion in grants to many municipalities. Bethlehem is the closest city that I think got 12 million last year. Our grant is more modest because the improvements we're suggesting are called easy to build improvements that don't require moving curbs, ripping out pavement. They're things, you'll see an example of plastic bollards and paint, signage, and things that can be done within the existing curb lines. And our cost estimates for this plan, for the grant, are about 1.8 for the total project, 1.8 million. The total project, some of the costs in this plan include sidewalks and pathways along the 7th Street corridor, but they wouldn't qualify under the grant category we're applying for. So we're going to leave those out on the first this first application because they're hard construction projects. And under the category we're applying for, which is called a demonstration project, these easy to build improvements are permitted. The plan, when you get a chance to look at it, includes a pledge from the mayor and city council members to work towards this goal over the next 10 years or more. And a lot of cities have done this type of a plan and moving forward with this type of thing. Again, to eliminate traffic related fatalities and injuries. Is there a question? I'm sorry. Okay. So also, Complete Streets is a nice companion to this. Reading adopted your you adopted a Complete Streets ordinance back in 2015. You're one of the first cities to do so. So this complements something that's already on the books here in the city. That's just Complete Streets is, as the name sounds, you're designing for all modes of transportation. In terms of the report, there's an executive summary and the implementation of what are called proven countermeasures in the downtown would be the first step to planning and implementing multimodal facilities citywide. And you can see things like sharrows, which are those little arrows with the bike symbols, or bike lanes, those flexible plastic delineators, decorative crosswalks, special crossings around 7th Street or crossing railroads and improving those. sharrows where it's just simply a sign and a symbol in the ground on the pavement, and those are used on more low volume, low speed roads to alert motorists that there might be cyclists on these roads. And in terms of the things that are looked at in this program, Safe Streets and Roads for All, is equity. Are we providing facilities for all abilities, all people of different income levels, and certainly bicycle travel and walking is sort of the great equalizer. Hopefully everybody can do that. We look at safety in the city over the last several years. Last year, we calculated the city has a fatality rate of 4 per 100,000, which is not high in downtown, but it's still there. Multimodal safety improvement recommendations are the main thing in this report, and also a plan of action and implementation are part of the suggestion, which you would update annually. These are the meetings we've had with our committee. We've done key agency interviews. We've had 2 public meetings, and we're planning another one for early June. We've met with this body 3 times. We've presented to city council, and we've had several meetings with city staff. So over the last couple of years, we've had some, I think, very good engagement. We've done site reconnaissance, of course, and we've done the design charrettes, and we presented at these meetings and open houses and done those stakeholder interviews. Also, with the planned restoration of passenger rail service, hopefully in a couple of years, you know, that last mile to and from the station becomes even more important, because people have to get to and from the new train station, which is planned to be at the Saucony Creek Brewery, the historic station site. So we think this is timely with the hopeful reintroduction of passenger rail. And safety is the #1 sort of driving force here. Everything that you would do would be according to national standards and safety regulation in terms of widths of bike lanes and where they go, et cetera, et cetera. In terms of the improvement recommendations, which are the most important part of the report, as we started to look at this, we were given the charge to look at the downtown area. We looked at the central core and then Franklin Street and the waterfront, and that sort of morphed into just routes through the downtown. We originally looked at 12 different corridors, and the RFP asked us to narrow that down to 6. So through a process of looking at, we didn't want to really put these facilities on high speed, high traffic roads. We wanted to avoid PennDOT roads because of the additional regulation on PennDOT roads. We started to go through that process to see where the best streets would be for these routes. We also recognize that, you know, the downtown is between Mount Penn Preserve, Neversink Mountain, and the Schuylkill River Greenway Trail, which is the SRT is probably one of the most important circuit trail components in eastern Pennsylvania. So this system in the downtown would help connect all those things to one another and downtown to all of them. So as we narrowed it down from 12 corridors to 6, these were the 6, Second Canal Street, 7th Street corridor, Court and Cherry as one-way pairs, Penn Street, although we're not suggesting to treat the entire length of Penn Street, Spruce Street to the riverfront, and then there were other ones that are shown in red here: Bingham Street, Laurel Street, 9th Street, and 10th and 6th, which I'll mention later. They're not the focus of what we're suggesting, but they still should be addressed in the future. And when you look in the report, each of these 6 priority routes has a narrative description where we try to succinctly put to words from block to block what the suggestion is, whether it's a bike lane, whether it's a sharrow, whether it's a parking protected bike lane, etc. And we've also included some photo sims. This is on the left, this shot looking roughly from the station with the Barter building to the right, where we have to stay out of the Norfolk Southern right away, but on the left was suggesting a multimodal trail, on the right a pedestrian sidewalk, and then behind the Barter building, some type of retreat as a park area. And that site could be 10 or 15 years, maybe that's where the train station goes, but for right now, it's not designated to go there. But we want to make that 7th Street corridor safe to get through and attractive. The greening of Penn Street has been a long time goal. EPA did a study, I think it's 2005. We actually did some work for Mr. Mukherjee when he was here trying to price that. It's been a very expensive proposition, but this plan shows that from 7th to 11th Street, without removing curbs and doing new paving, we could install parking protected bike lanes from 7th to 11th for around $100,000 using the methods I mentioned, painting, bollards, plastic bollards, and those type of things. So we think this is very doable to get at least this section of Penn Street up and running. When you look at the plan, you'll see we've divided the overall plan into 21 detailed sheets. And those sheets graphically represent what the recommendation is. And so the street there in the middle is Penn Street. And you can see we're maintaining travel lanes in each direction for vehicles. And then we're not removing parking. I mean, there may be a few parking spaces removed, but I think the charge was not to remove parking for all the obvious reasons. And then we can still have that green line along the curb or 2 parking protected bike lanes, which were recently allowed by the state legislature in terms of having those along the curb so that bicyclists are not exposed to moving cars. They're only exposed to parked cars, which is much, much safer. So we're able to do that along that section on Court Street, which is one way east. At this section of Court Street, as you know, it's very narrow. We just have sharrows there, painted sharrows that will share the road with automobiles, and the same thing at this section of Cherry Street. At the west ends of Court and Cherry, it gets wider. We're able to do different things, including some bike lanes. So it changes based upon the width of the street. Here's another illustration where we're coming at the top down from Front Street to Franklin, where we bring sharrows down. Franklin, we have room for a parking protected bike lane and vehicular lane in each direction. Along 2nd Street, you've probably seen the proposal by the Parking Authority to have a parking protected bike lane that was shown to us probably over a year ago. So that jives with what they want to do. So again, we think the next step once you get funding is to do the final engineering, which is going to consist of measurements and working with your engineer and maybe a traffic engineer to make sure these things all work. We think they do, but that's the next step. So in terms of the plan of action, here are the estimates for each corridor. You can see with design and engineering at 10%, we're at a figure of just over $2 million. And again, we've avoided PennDOT roads. We tried to stay on the lower volume, lower speed roads. The routes are sort of dispersed through the downtown. So even though we're not touching every street, we never want to touch every street. You get a good dispersion of routes through the downtown. They connect some residential neighborhoods, and they also connect to the BART facility and the future rail facility. Of that number, you can see on 7th Street, that's the highest number, 684,000. That's because we have new walkways and trails there. We would not submit those as part of this grant. We'd only submit the easy to build facilities with paint, plastic bollards, and those types of things, crosswalk, etc. The other 4 routes I just want to mention, the Bingham Street Bridge is going to be totally redecked by the PennDOT project that's part of the West Shore bypass. The city really should request, and I've been meaning to write this memo to Jamar, it should be coming, that right now PennDOT's not proposing a multi-use trail across the bridge. They're proposing a wide sidewalk. And we think, and that bridge is the last thing done on the West Shore bypass project, that they should be looking at a total multimodal protected trail there, because it's obviously an important connection to the west side, to Schlegel Park, to the pool, everything else. So that's important. Also, the connection on Laurel up the 9th, up the Neversink Mountain. That's just a simple shower route, wasn't part of the priority routes. And then 6th and 10th would be one-way pairs connecting Cherry in court, just with sharrows for that distance. So, these are in the report, but not priorities. In terms of the cost estimates, you will see that, they're broken down into pretty small units. Can't really read this too well, but, you know, thank you, we've got like on, Court Street from front to second, we have 500 feet of distance. And we've made assumptions of how many sharrows, how much line painting, how many signs. We've included things like planters to help control traffic, and maybe water-filled barriers, which are allowed under the program, and those types of things. And we feel like, and we have a contingency of 50%. So we feel like we've made adequate allowances for the construction of these things under the SS4A program. So when you see the report, you'll see the assumptions that we made. Hit the next slide, please. So the next steps, as I mentioned, we've electronically transmitted these plans to council, to this commission, to city staff, and our committee members. We're requesting from the planning commission in a week or shortly thereafter, if possible, a positive recommendation to city council to adopt this plan, knowing that the plan is always going to get revised on a yearly basis. We're going to be presenting to city council on the 9th. We want to request from city council that they adopt the plan prior to the grant deadline of the 26th. We would work with city staff to submit an SS4A application by the 26th. That would cover 80% of the project cost, and as a companion to that, submit a Pennsylvania DCED multimodal grant, which could cover the other 20%. So if we're successful here with both grants, these costs could be covered without much city money, except for probably staff. So that's where we are. As you get to look at this plan and review it, you can certainly reach out directly to us via email or phone if you have questions, comments, and we'll try to be available to answer all those questions and as quickly as we can. Any
Peter,
comments from the commissioners?
That's a nice plan. I like it.
Thank you. So, Jamar, did I hear you?
Yeah, I was just gonna say, we want to be more strategic going forward with our DCD applications. So we wouldn't seek a multimodal for that match. The city
Okay.
capital would be able to cover that with no problem. But 200% agree on the Safe Streets for All, 80% coverage, absolutely.
And hearing nothing else, I want to thank Peter for joining us live today. He's usually on Zoom with us. It's nice to see him in person.
Same.
And so we will take a look at this, and next week is our voting meeting, and we'll see what happens.
Great, thank you.
Okay.
Very
We
good.
will then move on to the short-term rental zoning amendment. I guess that's for Jerome.
Yeah, that's what you.
Okay, staff has been working on the zoning amendment that would pertain to short-term rentals. And short-term rentals are, as most of you know, VRBO, Airbnb, and others, where someone wants to rent a house for a short duration, and then it's just turned over on a continuous basis. So there aren't many zoning choices or something or things to look at from other municipalities. I think the city of Reading may be one of the first ones in our county. There are others in the Poconos and other places that would be more of a vacation destination, but we should also just consider this. There's roughly, by counts that we have done, just on exploring Airbnb and VRBO, there's roughly about at least 30 of these within the city now. There could be a lot more, that was just our brief searches. So staff has been working on this, and we've been bringing the ordinance together, and we're down to one critical step, and I think that we can get if we can get planning commission support on this, that'd be nice. We originally opened it up to all the zoning districts. So that included all the residential districts, all of the commercial districts, and all the industrial districts. Staff felt that that was too widespread and determined that it should just be focused on the R3, CC, CR, CN, and CH zoning districts, all commercial districts. Matt, who is here today, also was one of the lead people at the presentation at Albright College, which provided some case law on this that he might be able to share with us. But we're struggling right now with just having it in the R3 district. All these uses would be by right, and we threw out the R1 and R2 because we felt that the density in those districts might be not realistic for a short-term rental. But in the R3, it may. But still, do we want these in our R3 zoning district, which is one of our biggest zoning districts? And
What do you mean by, what was your comment with R1? It might not be desired or reason.
It may not be conducive because of the types of neighborhoods. It's more one-family dwellings versus two-family dwellings. So the mix of a rental property some would perceive as being an apartment or a hotel or a motel or something along those lines. So there was some pushback from that angle. And the R3 is still something that's questionable, and something I think we need to take a hard look at. If we also included separation distances between where these short-term rentals can be. Within the R3, we did have 1,000-foot separation distance. In the C2, CC, CR, CN, and CH, we had a 500-foot separation between the uses. We also included, if they were going to be in a multifamily dwelling, that they would be no more than 20%. That would be permissible within those types of dwellings. And then there's a whole host of other provisions. But what we like to do is get you the current draft of what the staff has put together, and then talk about it a little bit further next week at our regular meeting, and then determine if we're on the right course. And then secondly, if we should go through the review process, that would be, you would review it again. The Berks County Planning Commission would review it as a zoning amendment, and then staff could also put its final comments together. It does come, we felt that the zoning ordinance should not encompass all of the regulatory provisions that would be put in there. For example, the number of, for example, nuisances and fireworks and, all those things. And we wanted to focus mostly on the use and parking in the ordinance. And then there'll be a supplemental zoning permit and use requirements for the short-term rentals. Those will be attached to the permit. And so those will be, the landowner would be responsible for complying with those regulations. So that would be in their file, and if they should violate it and the police or fire department should show up and they're in violation, then they would be, that their permit could be pulled. But yeah, I'd like to get this to you I should be able to send it out tomorrow. And like I said, the R3 is the critical thing that we're focusing on now, whether or not it should be included within that district or not.
The distance thing, Does that mean that in the R3, for example, if there is an Airbnb, then there cannot be another one within 1,000 feet of that one?
That would be the case of permitted, one that has a permit.
Mhm.
Right now, we count 30, and we're basically counting those as non-permitted facilities. They would have to come in and get a permit in order to be a legal short-term rental.
That why the number 1,000 feet? I'm just curious.
The
where that
1,000
came
feet was selected for the R3 district just for spacing, that it would be
from. I mean, it's a significant
geometrically
distance.
spaced out further versus a whole block of them.
That's just a long distance. I'm surprised. That is such a large number. But,
Jerome, is there a penalty for illegal short-term rentals once we have the legal process in place? I don't.
Yeah, once we have the
remember.
once we have the legal process in place, then they would be in violation of the zoning ordinance if they did not obtain a permit. And then they would be taken under the normal procedures for zoning violations.
Okay, thank you.
But yeah, I think that this would be better for a discussion next week, but I just wanted to give you just a quick overview.
Since my name was mentioned, I'll just kind of chime in real quick. It's some of this case law that was discussed. A lot of it's deals with the residential versus commercial use of short-term rentals, and a lot of these cases examined that question, determined that these are commercial uses rather than residential uses. I think that explains why we're trying to why we eliminated this from the residential districts, and now there's this question of do we want it in the R3 district? This idea that their commercial use might help explain the 1,000 feet distance. I can't speak for the drafters, but just giving you some input that this is considered in a case law commercial use rather than residential use.
well, I mean, for those of us who use Airbnbs when we travel to other cities in the US or elsewhere, they're often in R1 or R3 type neighborhoods, and they do seem to be closer together.
Very true.
Where they're allowed. So I'm just curious.
Yeah,
But I can understand the objection in the R1s for sure.
yeah.
I often rent a house in an R1 type setting elsewhere.
Yeah, I do too when I'm in Rochester. Sometimes it's just easier to rent the whole house.
Yeah. But anyway, in fact, I know of one down the street from me that may not be permitted for that use, but is used that way.
Well, I think we can have a better discussion once you get the draft, and I'll send it out, and I'll send it out tonight.
Yep, good.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it's great that we're taking this on and putting a stake in the ground. All right.
Yeah, I don't know. Sometimes I look stuff up and I forget to notify people, but like in Rochester actually doesn't have a short-term rental zoning laws because they rely on the state law, which is interesting. And so I assume Pennsylvania has no state laws controlling this.
Yes, that's correct. Right now, there's nothing controlling this. State law wise, I should say.
All right. Very good. Then we'll continue the discussion on this next week. And next up is the Planning Commission Annual Report. We'll have an update from Jerome.
Okay, so we've prepared a final draft that is now before you. The final draft, as mentioned before, contains 10 subcategories. One is the first one is the identification of planning commission members. The second is approved plans, subdivision and land development that were approved in 2024, in which there were 17. And then we identified in the third section approved plans by reaffirmation, in which we have a lot of those. Fourth section is planning subdivision and land development applications that are pending, and we still have quite a bit of those. Some of those you'll see that even we approved them, some of them haven't recorded their plans. The fifth section is plans denied, withdrawn, and or waived, and we've had 12 of those last year. The next section, section 12, is section F, is active and or approved development plans with municipal improvements agreements and escrow accounts. We're often asked what's the status of certain projects that are been approved by the planning commission, yet they go through a long or lengthy time with municipal improvements. Examples of that, say, are the Reading School District STEM School, Albright College, Exeter Hall, and there and even new ones like Duca, the parking facility, and McDonald's. The next district is conditional uses. We had in 2023, we had several conditional use or special exception applications. We only had one last year. Section H is the municipal plans, reports, and ordinances that the City Planning Commission has worked on, and there were a lot this year. So we've had a great deal of activity in that area. And then the ninth section, or section I, is planning commission resolutions and or meeting minutes. And then the last section is the planning commission projects, meetings, and activities that were conducted in 2024. So what this report is, this report's required by the Pennsylvania Municipalities Planning Code. It's section 207. We are required to prepare an annual report and then submit it to the council for their review, and if there's any questions. The planning commission is the one who actually adopts it. So I think the only thing that we're now missing is just the filling in of resolution numbers. Once we have that, we can proceed to the city council. We do have a city council date, and correct me if I'm wrong, Simon, it's June 9th.
Yes, there was that discussion, but I need to confirm with Linda. So I'll share, I'll confirm the date on 27th during the meeting.
So this will be on your agenda again for the planning commission meeting next week on the 27th, just to reaffirm that you agree with this and it's approved, so we can proceed in that direction. Like I said, the only thing we have to add is the resolution numbers, and hopefully we can get those by next week.
Yes, I'm still working on those. I'm up to July.
Okay.
So it's coming along, and I will be taking them with me. I'm leaving Thursday for New Hampshire for a wedding. So but I will be taking that with me to finish it up. Try to get it done by Tuesday.
Okay.
Okay, any comments on the annual report? Okay, I guess we will then move on to the West Reading Borough zoning ordinance amendments that Jerome has reviewed and has given us a letter, a review letter.
Yeah, I'll take you through the review letter. West Reading Borough has completed a comprehensive revision or amendments to their zoning ordinance to specifically focus on downtown, their downtown overlay district. And what this did was it incorporated several sections into the plan itself which are the downtown overlay district itself, retail frontage overlay district, the commercial frontage overlay district, signs for the downtown overlay district, supplemental regulations, and then performance standards. So these were all either added or enhanced substantially. Under 2 are the areas of the zoning ordinance that changed, had some minor changes or as a result of the changes that were made above. So within the ordinance itself, you can tell where it has been revised, considering individual zoning districts and also other regulations. Number 3, I stated that the comprehensive amendments are principally related to the downtown overlay district. The foundation is based upon form-based zoning, which they provide a lot of graphics and artwork as well in order to depict what they want to do in terms of their downtown overlay district. It's really a good way to accommodate both the development, redevelopment, revitalization, and economic development activities within an urban core. You're basically portraying this is what we would like to see within the they wanted to see in the borough. I think it's a good tool that we could possibly look at for the city in order for to consider certain corridors. But it makes a lot of sense, but it's a lot of work, and they're going to have their hands full with making sure that everyone's on course with this. But kudos to them. It's an ambitious approach. Number 4, in case you're wondering if this where we have impacts with the or implications between the West Reading Borough and the city of Reading. Number 1 or A, the areas along the south of Parkside Drive and Playground Drive shall remain part of the Conservation District or C District. The area along the west side of the railroad track between Playground Drive and Spruce Street will remain to be part of the R2 district. The area along the east side of the railroad tracks between Spruce Street and Penn Street, or Penn Avenue rather, shall continue to be zoned as the light industrial district. And then the area extending north of that, going on the, I believe it's the east side of the railroad tracks, going north to all the way from Penn Street to just north of the Buttonwood Street Bridge, that shall all still remain conservation district. So they did not change any zoning districts within those areas. The draft zoning ordinance should be submitted to the Berks County Planning Commission for review and consideration. You have the option to provide a recommendation to West Reading Borough. That should be taken on your May 27th meeting. And if there are any questions, I can hopefully answer them.
Any questions on this from the commissioners? Was a hard copy of this sent out?
Yes, and it's I believe on your on the FTP site.
Okay.
Yes.
All right.
For the zoning map, you'll have to go onto the zoning map itself. It's not inclusive within the ordinance itself.
Okay. Any other comments or questions? Okay.
The only thing I wanted to mention, Mr. Chairman, I don't know if this is appropriate, but I wanted to recommend that if we are going to send this out, perhaps we could put it on the planning commission headed paper.
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
Okay. And with that, we'll move on to the Bern Township Comprehensive Plan.
Bern Township has submitted a comprehensive plan They are required by the Pennsylvania Municipalities Planning Code to send it to all adjacent municipalities. The city of Reading is one of those municipalities. The draft comprehensive plan does consider some contemporary policies for land use, zoning, housing, ecology, community facilities, and transportation. The background assessment does provide the basics for what a comprehensive plan is required to do, as well as the functional components, which are very basic as well, but they've touched upon land use, housing, zoning, natural features and resources, community facilities and services, transportation, and circulation. I was on the phone with Deb Hogue just this morning, and she had asked me about, did they acknowledge the city of Reading being where sanitary sewage is coming into the city, and what the area that would include. And I had to inform her it does not. So it's, like I said, it's a basic plan. They probably just did it because their previous comprehensive plan was not current, and they may have been asked upon that. So this is their current plan. The draft comprehensive plan should go to the Berks County Planning Commission. And the draft comprehensive plan is generally consistent with the City of Reading comprehensive plan, as well as other planning documents that have been adopted by the City of Reading. Therefore, there does not appear to be any planning implications or impacts between both municipalities. Like I said, it's a basic plan, and so therefore they weren't really going out on a limb with recommendations for land use, community facilities, or transportation. And your recommendations should be taken at your regular meeting on May 20th, on May 27th, rather.
Yeah, I noticed that it was short. I think it's only 53 pages.
Yeah.
So yeah, we'll take a look at that. Any questions or comments on the Bern Township Comprehensive Plan?
No,
Hearing none.
I just wanted to point out that I need to leave this meeting. I have an appointment to get to.
Okay,
So,
very good.
sorry for that.
Yep, we are finishing up. Thanks for joining us, Peter.
Yeah, all right, I'll see you next week.
Okay, take care.
See, bye-bye.
Okay, and let me see here. I don't have anything else. So the our upcoming planning commission meetings, our next regular planning commission meeting will be May 27th, 2025 at 6 p.m. It turns out I will be driving back from New Hampshire that day, so I will not be here. So hopefully we'll be able to fill in for me and carry on with the meeting.
Gonna be a big agenda.
Yeah. I will try to get back, but I can't guarantee it. Because every time I drive out of New Hampshire, I get stuck for hours in Connecticut for some reason.
Yeah, we have a
And
lot of new, we have a lot of new plans, and we have plans that are just coming in, and we expect to have a lot of plans submitted the following month as well.
Wow. Okay, so it's going to be busy 2 months then. Our next workshop meeting is June 17th at 5:30 p.m. And then the June regular meeting is June 24th at 6 p.m. Does anyone have any comments or anything for the good of the order? Yeah, Hearing none, do I hear a motion to adjourn?
Make a motion.
Okay, James?
Second.
Thank you, Nelson. Question on the motion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We are out of order. So, thank you.